Hello, I am Anirban. I want to give a demo presentation on the topic of the coordination system of our body, the nervous and the endocrinological system. So, before the starting my topic of teaching, I want to give a short brief outline of about me. So, I am basically a senior research fellow doing my PhD from the immunological laboratory on the University of Calcutta, and I am also the guest faculty performing as a guest faculty on the Department of the Pharmaceutical Technology in the Jadavpur University. And I have also the experience of teaching the on the online platform in different through via different agencies, and I'm also working as the academic consultant and the course content developer from on an agency called Saraswati Online. So over there my role is to recruit the faculty members to develop the course content of the what is going to be taught in the curriculum. And I have also been volunteer as a for a couple of years in a NGO. And I used to teach over in the online platform for the last 1 year or so, and basically on the class 9, 10, 11, 12 biology. Majority of my student is from the background of for appearing for the medical entrance, and I taught the biology part to them. So I have completed my post graduation MSc from in 2011, and my BSc in zoology again from the in 2009. And I have now currently pursuing the PhD over in the University of Calcutta. So in the meantime, I have also cleared the national level examinations like CSR UGC National Eligibility Test for Junior Research Fellowship and the lecturership thrice over in this three times, and have been awarded for my PhD work on the in several occasions. So in my teaching experience, I used to set the university examination papers from the Jadavpur University on the subject that I am teaching over there, the pharmaceutical biology part of them, and has the experience in teaching the class 9, 10, 11, 12 biology for many years. I've completed few of the international level courses from different universities on the relevant topics of my interest. So with this short introduction about me, I am now just going to the today's topic, that is the now how this nervous system and the endocrinological system, the two major system of our body, how they regulate each other and how they coordinate with each other to maintain the human physiological functions, responses to the stimulus, etc. So basically, these two systems, the nervous system and endocrinological system, regulate the most of the functionings or the most of the actions that are performed by the human body. So the basic difference between them, then the question might come that where is the difference between having these two different systems? So where is lies the basic difference between them? So one, basically the nervous system depends on the electrical impulses, that is the ion exchange, the sodium ion potassium ion exchange through the synapses, etc., helps in the impulses to the propagated through the nerves, and that gives rise to the nervous system. And the endocrinological system is basically relied on the chemicals or the hormones, they are called the hormones. So the basic difference is that the speed of the information transfer is high in case of the nervous system in comparison to the endocrinological system. So in case of emergency, for example, whenever you are say you are just crossing a road and you are suddenly turn your head to the right side and saw a car is approaching very fast, and then the first signal that your brain gets from the eye is the speed that you are moving is not up to the level so that you can escape the hit by the car. So in that context, this give the signal, they pass the signal through the nerves, through the efferent nerves to the limbic limbs, so that the it can move very fast and can to the safe area of the street. So here the nervous system needs to be very fast. Or for example, I can say another example, like you are climbing upstairs through a staircase and suddenly you tripped, then immediately your body's action changed, your limbs get more activated, more alert to stop you from the fall. So these first impulses, where there is a requirement of the first impulses, first then the nervous system is the system that you can rely on. Whereas in the chemical cases, the hormones, the propagation is relatively not up to that level, but their response is sustained for a long duration. So here you see the duration of the effects. The responses are short-lived, and in the hormonal they are might be short-lived and might also be long-lived in many of the cases. So in case of there's the voluntary or involuntary nervous system is there, but that means that it depends upon your will. It's but in case of endocrinological system, in they didn't depend upon what you want or what you don't. They will keep on secreting or synthesizing the new hormones, the new protein hormones to the level of according to the need of the body that you are right now having. So another important thing is that the target area is usually localized. So in the case of nervous system, where the nerve propagation hits, the main propagation or the main functioning do happen over in that localized area. But here in case of endocrinal system, the hormones or the chemicals usually travel through different parts of the body and then have the response in the different target organs. So now if we can see that the nervous system is broadly divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system comprises of the two major divisions, that is the brain and the spinal cord. So here you see the spinal cord has the different nerve endings coming out from each of the vertebrae that are present in the spinal cord, and these nerves actually go and reach to the different body parts of our whole body, and hence the stimuli or the signals that are coming from them actually get into the spinal cord through the nerve propagation, and ultimately it reaches the brain, where it interprets the signal that what is coming. The peripheral nervous system is basically comprises of these portions, the outlying portions, those nerves that does not comprise directly to the to the spinal cord and in the brain. So to be precise, this nervous system classification, as I am discussed about the central nervous system, the spinal cord and the brain, and I will come later into this brain stem and the cerebrum and the parts of the brain and why it is functioning. I will come into it later, but before that we can have an overview and holistic overview about how this endocrinological and nervous system do appear and how they coordinate the body's functioning. So here we see the peripheral nervous system, that is I am talking about, that are comprised of the somatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and the enteric peripheral nervous system. So this autonomic nervous system is again divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, where you see that uh, um, there is inhibition of the some of the functionings, that is the inhibition of the flow of saliva, the pupil dilated in case of when the sympathetic nervous system get activated. So there is a secretion of adrenaline and the noradrenaline. These are the hormones or the neurotransmitters which actually has the functions to highly activated your body's function. So from the previous example, that when you are crossing the road or when you are tripped in a staircase, at that moment there is a high secretion of the adrenaline. So this adrenaline rush actually helps in the nervous regulation or the neural regulation. So adrenaline is basically a hormone, secreted from the endocrine gland called the adrenal gland. So however, from here we see how the endocrinological chemical hormones and the nervous systems do coordinate with each other. So sympathetic nervous system gets activated when there is a chance of a risk at that moment. But the parasympathetic nervous system is actually to cool you down. So from the here we see that if there is a hot object stimulus, your finger nerve endings in your finger do detect there is something danger, there is something which is not liked by your body, basically preferably you can tell. So what they do is that through the afferent nerves, the afferent signaling travels, and this afferent signaling enters into the spinal cord, and the spinal cord, through spinal cord it reaches the brain, and over there they interpret that here is a danger, so you need to move the hand out of the fire. So the efferent neuron, this efferent neuron then fires and gives the signal to the limbs to remove the hand. So this is how the actual functionings do happen. So what are the cells of the nervous system? They are called the neurons. So the neurons, this is a basic structure of the neurons, which has the dendrites or the prolongations in the cell bodies, which is the basic having the nucleus and other basic cell organelles that you have must have taught in the previous chapters about the cell bodies, etc. So there is a myelinated region where is a myelin sheath covering. So this myelin sheath is covering is basically due to the fast propagation of the nerve impulses, and there is some junctions gap over here, which is the nodes of Ranvier, where there is an exchange of the ions do happen over here. So the discussion about the neurons and the detailed discussion of the different types of neurons that are very important for your exam purposes, we will come later. And also we will come later about the how this exchange of ions do happen, when and how will this will happen, and how this will affect the nerve propagations. This is very important in terms of the exams perspective, because this propagation of nerve impulses, about that when the potassium and sodium ion do will exchange, and how it will exchange from the inside of the cell surface to the outside of the cell surface, outside of the neuron, those are very important in terms of the exams. So this is nodes on and where. So these are the synaptic connections. So if you see that this is the axon, from the previous figure you will figure out that what is axon. Here is the axon. The axon is this long tail like projection. So this axon comes and end over here, and so there is a start of a plasma membrane of a cell, the cell which needs to be responded due to the signal that is transferred by them. So these axons do actually perform the have the receptors where the neurotransmitters will release, and these receptors will take up the signals and will respond like the manner that it should do. So now coming to the endocrine glands, we see that there are different endocrine glands. The glands which actually secrete some proteins or secrete some of the hormones, you can tell, and they are travel to the circulatory system through the different parts of the body, which is away from their site of the synthesis, and there they function. So from here we see that out of these glands, this pituitary gland is the called the master gland of the body. This pituitary gland, because these pituitary hormones, there are different pituitary hormones like growth hormones, prolactins. Over here you see a number of hormones, and these hormones actually what they do, they actually influence the other glands. These other glands, for example, this pituitary gland secretes adrenocorticotropic hormone. So what is function? Its function is on adrenal glands that is present just over your kidney. So over here, this adrenocorticotropic hormone will come and bind in the adrenal cortex and secretes its hormone, that is the adrenaline. So like that, this master gland, that is the pituitary gland, can control the different functionings of our body. And on the basis of the chemical nature of the hormones, you can tell that there are different types of hormones according to the chemical nature, and their mode of actions also do differ. Some hormones which are called the uh, peptide hormones, that is protein based hormones, has the receptors on the cell surface, and when these hormones bind to the cell surface, there is a cascade of signaling pathways, a cascade of molecules in the signaling pathways relay the signal to the nucleus, where the main functioning of the cell do happen, or it can also pass the signal to some of the important molecules of the cells, where it can perform the cellular responses, like here in case of the glycogen to glucose conversion over here. So but in case of steroid hormones, these hormones actually do not have any cell surface receptors. They actually travel, and their receptors is internal within the cell, within the cytoplasm, or within the nuclear membrane. And what its function is that this receptor hormone conjugate will ultimately travel and binds to the DNA and regulates the gene expression. See, the new protein is synthesized. New protein synthesis is due to the reason of the steroid hormone release, the action of the steroid hormone, and these new proteins actually do have some functioning, so to maintain the body mechanism. So here I provide a list of some hormones that you can check at your time, a list that about the hormones, about the chemical classes, how their actions are represented, and how their actions are regulated. So these two hormones, by about the different glands of synthesis, you can go and check at your time. So after this list that we have over here, and after we know that what type of chemical class of hormones, that where their representative actions are and where they are regulated by, and this is very much important, that after knowing that okay, estrogen is one hormone, it has some actions, it is the class is steroid, fine, it's really released from the ovarian gland, it's fine. But the problem is that which are the hormones that regulate this hormone itself? You have to know the network of the hormones, in a chart that we can provide afterwards, that how one hormone influence another and how these two hormones in together influence the third one. And unless and until we have a clear view and a clear picture that how this hormonal network integrate and work together, we didn't have the complete picture of how they can able to maintain the homeostasis of or the body's physiological mechanism. So this is one of the very important slide about the feedback controls, that whatever goes up, there is a saying that whatever goes up will comes down. So from here we see that whenever one hormone is released in a system, it has some purpose or function or reason that why it has been synthesized or why it has been released actually in the system. So when that purpose or that requirement or that need actually gets over, then what will be the fate of that hormone? If the signaling goes on continuing, then the level of that particular hormone will keep on increasing, when even when there is no need at all of that particular hormone in the system, and that will have a huge detrimental effect. So to combat with this, our system, but our physiological system has a feedback mechanism, that how this regulation and the body homeostasis is maintained, how they have a feedback mechanism control, that how one hormone actually influences, or the level of one hormone actually sends signal to the brain region, the main master gland, that is the pituitary gland. Over here you see that the hypothalamus actually affects the anterior pituitary. For example, in this example, say the thyroxine, we need the thyroxine in our blood. For that reason, what is happening is that hypothalamus is sending the signal to the anterior pituitary by thyroxine releasing hormone, and this thyroxine releasing hormone on binding to the anterior pituitary actually influences the release of the thyroid stimulating hormone. The role of this thyroid stimulating hormone is to get into the circulation and get bind to the cell surface receptors that are present on the thyroid gland itself, and this thyroid gland ultimately helps in the release of the thyroxine hormone. This thyroxine hormone is very much essential for body's functioning. Fine. Now when this the optimum level of the thyroxine hormone level is reached in the system, then there must be some inhibitory mechanism by which the synthesis, this pathway, this one-way traffic needs to be stopped or revert back. So the way it is done is that there is a sensor in the system that can sense that okay, the thyroxine level in the blood is high, the concentration is high. Now this is an inhibitory mechanism that is going on, sending the signal to the hypothalamus that they stop secreting the thyroid releasing hormone. And once this hormone releasing is stopped, the one by one the whole cascade will get stopped down. The thyroid releasing hormone will stop, the thyroid stimulating hormone will get stopped secreting, and hence the thyroid gland will not be stimulated, and then the thyroxine will not be synthesized, and whatever in the system, already in the system, will after being used up will be the level will ultimately get back to the normal. So here is the slide that how this same feedback mechanism actually controls the blood glucose level. The blood glucose level is high whenever you are taking some meal. Whenever we are taking some meal, the blood glucose level is high, and then insulin is released, and this insulin acts upon the glucose molecules and helps to convert the glucose to glycogen, which is stored in the liver and other levels, and hence the blood glucose level declines to a set point. This is the optimum point, this is the optimum point where it needs to be come back again. And when it is come back, and then when it starts decreasing below that optimum level, then you will feel hungry. Then you will feel the need that whether that we have to take some more food, so that there is another supply, another round of supply of the blood glucose. So this is the stimulus. The raising blood glucose is actually the stimulus. Instead, when this is a low, when the blood glucose levels falls back, then what happens is that the, for example, you are in a fasting, or where you get into some place where you can find any food to eat for some a long day you didn't have any food. Then what is happening is that the glucagon that is stored already in the liver or in some other organs, also in the muscles, that glucagon will break down to convert to the glucose molecules. This glucagon is this conversion is done by another hormone called glucagon, to convert this glycogen that is stored. Sorry, I mistake. This glycogen that is stored in the liver, that it is converted by the glucagon hormone, so that it breaks down. This glycogen breaks down to the glucose molecule that can be used up by the system. So to end with, I'm sorry. So I am not playing this video right now. So
They produce molecules called hormones and release them into the vascular system. Hormones are like
So let us see in this video. It will take a minute or so. So these are the important glands of our system. The important glands. So here is the thymus gland that is present in our system. These glands actually do synthesize the hormones called thyroxines, and all the glands synthesize these hormones. Ultimately gets into the circulatory system. Here we see into the circulatory system, and it ultimately travels and goes into its destined organ, the target organ, where it needs to work upon. So over there it acts over there, and for example this hormone actually helps in the division of the cell division that you have already taught, the mitosis, meiosis, etc. So these are controlled by these hormones. So what are the master gland that we have discussed? The pituitary gland, it is located in the brain. If you see the actual location, and that is the pituitary gland, the small overhanging projections, and over there in the top there is the hypothalamic hormones that are coming and getting into the pituitary gland, influencing the pituitary gland to synthesize its hormones, the hormones that needs to be synthesized by it. So these hormones, as we see in the color coded region as a pictographically, have each of them has a different functions. For example, it goes to the kidney and helps in the renal filtration and different thing. For example, this oxytocin hormone goes into the uterus for the parturition and the baby delivery. For example, this is the somatostatin or the growth hormones, and this is the calcification, the bone calcification hormone. So there are multiple hormones. We have to more and more, as we will see that how each of the deficiency or the hyperactivity or hypersecretion of each of these hormones actually do influence our body's mechanisms in some later classes. So I'm concluding my session over here. Thanks for the patience hearing, and for any further future correspondence, you can mail me at the email ID provided over here in the top of your screen. Thank you.